Hello and welcome to Kendall Brown. And today we are doing theme number 11, Health and Society. And we are looking at the idea of great speech. The skill tag that we are looking into is creative thinking, and the SDG tags are goal number 10 and 16. Based on a lot of conversation, any of these goals can apply, including further goals that we think of. What is creativity? It's about capturing and holding your audience's attention. The idea of creativity is basically, can you speak in a way where somebody is captivated, motivated? Can you push that conversation around? And this is what we are trying to do with the creative process. So let's take the conversation to what are the steps in creativity. Number one, we're looking at content and delivery. So we're looking at storytelling, we're looking at humor. A beautiful joke can lighten the mood, build the rapport. A lot of good speakers use humor, and I think it's one of the most effective way to use storytelling. Well, quickly, also you need to look at some of the elements like interactive elements. If you're doing an online session, polls, question, Kahoot, even a simple rhetoric question, ask them yes or no is very important. As a rule of thumb, do not ask very complicated open-ended question in the beginning of your speech. In the beginning of speech, just ask them, did you have your breakfast? How many of you travel the furthest to come here? These things will make them interact and at least active in your thing. Also, in your speech, vary your delivery. A lot of us speak in monotone. One of the worst crime we can use is read a PowerPoint presentation. Change the pace. Of course, I'm guilty of speaking too fast, but the volume can be higher. If you want people to pay attention, speak very slowly, whisper, and people will lean forward, assuming you speak well. Also, keep your language simple, use descriptive words, metaphors, paint a picture with words. As it says, a picture is worth thousand words. And this is very, very important. Use very easy, uncomplicated languages. But yes, once in a while, don't be afraid to use a quote, a poem, or even song lyrics that resonate with your message. Personal anecdotes are always people captivating people. If you tell your own story, what happened in the taxi you went, where you once you traveled alone, or something you did which is absolutely connecting with people, makes a lot of difference. And finally, surprise your audience with a thought-provoking question, a humor, or a twist in the tale. Good speakers know that it's a combination of a lot of skills that make people stand out in your speech. As we do our first chapter activity, I love the idea of having a quick extempo. What's an extempo? Extempo is when you are asked to speak with very minimum preparation. So maybe you're given a topic, you're allowed to think for a minute or two, and then you have to speak on it. Extempore also shows a person's well-read nature, well-traveled nature, how much you can interrupt and how much you can think on the feet. So here is a quick go at extempore. Think of very simple thing. If you're a book, what type of book would you be? Think of a genre. Would you be fiction, non-fiction? What kind of, is it a Robin Sharma kind of a book, or is it Percy Jackson kind of a book? Is it mythological or an Harry Potter series, or it is too much deep reflective thing? Most students will relate to books of their own nature. If there was a character, what character would it be? Today, manga is a hit among teenagers. Maybe you don't know, but they will talk about Luffy, the rubber man, or a lot of other manga characters like Naruto. If you wear a piece of clothing, if you realize this entire creative question is if you wear, it's a very simple thing. It's not complicated. Animal, food. One of my favorite one is if you wear one of the four elements. The moment you give a choice to them, it's easier for them to pick one from four rather than pick, a journal book. Although there are thousands of books, it's very difficult for somebody to pick one book. But if I tell you, and you can start with this, if you were an element, earth, wind, water, or fire, why and which one would it be? Perhaps you can relate it with this recent movie called Inside Out 2, that fire is always thought to be fiery, angry, but maybe fire is very passionate. Water is supposed to be cool, but maybe water is the tsunami of it. So, you start asking them the character of each element, why this element fits them. Or you can even do something, you can pick on one child and you can say, okay, if this child was an element, which one it would be? You can pick on a celebrity. For example, if I were doing this, I would pick on three or four very famous celebrities from Karthik Aryan to Taylor Swift to Elon Musk and Virat Kohli. And I'll say, okay, now get four elements to these four different individual celebrities. There's so much variety. The idea is creative speaking is all about having the right conversation. Let's move to activity number two, which is called freedom of speech. Well, I love this. It is also a part of BLM, which is Black Lives Matter, and everybody has the right to free speech. There was this beautiful meme where a parrot was inside a cage and a crow was outside. And the crow told the parrot that because you speak, you are imprisoned. Well, we have this right of speaking, but our speech should not hurt anybody. His speech should be polite, and our speech should be more internal reflective. Well, one of my favorite speech, and I think one of the most popular line that we see in the world across, is this world by this, the gentleman Martin Luther King. He said, "I have a dream." MLK, he was a black right activist. Learn about him. He stood up for racial equality. He had this rhetoric. Rhetoric is one thing he kept saying over and over again. And one of the rhetoric that people think is, "I have a dream." He said, "I have a dream that my four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of the skin, but by the content of the character." When Barack Obama became the first black president of United States, I think he had this beautiful reflection of not only Martin Luther King, but also Nelson Mandela, another beautiful black right activist. Along with that, there is another speech which is by Malcolm X. Malcolm X was someone more radical than MLK. Both of them coincidentally were shot dead. They were assassinated very close to the age 40 years. So Malcolm X argued that self-defense and criticism are part of peaceful process. His famous quote is, "We don't need integration if it means subjugation." So they say we want to live free, but we cannot just live under somebody. Very interesting conversations. We don't want to be integrated in a burning house. We want the fire to be put out. Now, ask the students to read this. It's a very, very lovely series that I'm recommending, and ask them which speech do they relate more. In a poll done, a lot of young people kind of know MLK better, but they somehow think of Martin Luther King, and they think, no, he was very passive, like our own Gandhiji, and they think Bhagat Singh of Malcolm X is much better. It's a choice. Do not take sides, but allow them the freedom. And I leave you with this beautiful poster. It's one of the most beautiful posters with two minds and one moment. It is a series on called Genius of MLK and Malcolm X. They also call him just X. It's something the kids must know. All right. Finally, we go to the lighter part of creativity in speech called figures of speech. Well, if you haven't paid attention, figure of speech is something like metaphors, puns, similes. Creative advertisers use this. For example, Nike had an ad of Hare and the Tortoise. Or you can think about all of the tortoises were one, and there was a Nike shoe as a hare. You can think of many multiple phases where Nike is not slow, Nike is wonderful. There were The idea of creativity in speech using this is wonderful. For example, you think of your schooling, and you can look at the word rat race. It's a figure of speech where everybody's competing, but the end you will be a rat. So schooling could be like that. Or you can think of another creative phrase. It is raining cats and dogs. Literally, it's not raining cats and dogs, but it is raining so much that cats and dogs are raining. Maybe associate that with a travel tourism concept. India has a beautiful, incredible India campaign. Every state of India has a tagline. For example, one of my favorite is Bengal, which is the sweetest part of India, or Karnataka, which is India lives here, or Gujarat, which is vibrant Gujarat. Why don't you use a state and a figure of speech and make people, students speak? Remember, this is a public speaking chapter. The more you allow them to speak and express themselves, the better they become. Another last advice is, so a lot of parallel activities can be done. You can give them 20 figure of speeches, very common figure of speeches, 20 of them. Just Google them, just ask ChatGPT and ask them to decode what these 20 could mean. Right. So, a common one would be, just as I said, raining cats and dog. Make them think. They can even draw raining cats and dog, and it will be fun. And they ask each other, or letting the cat out of the box. That means telling a secret to somebody, or kicking a bucket, which basically means somebody dying. There's so many amazing parts of speeches, figure of speeches you can think of. The more you research, the better you become. I hope you enjoy this entire thing. Good luck. Have a great time teaching this.